Welcome to
Unfiltered Growth.
Real Talk on Trends and Strategies. This podcast is your weekly dose of reality-checked wisdom.
As we explore the intersection of entrepreneurship, marketing, culture, business, and innovation.
We strip away the BS and dive into real challenges and opportunities for revenue growth.
With a sharp, unfiltered lens.
Expect raw conversations, real success,
and failure stories,
and practical advice that you can apply to your journey.
No filters,
just growth.
Benny, my brother.
Yes, sir.
How are you today?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's definitely been a new season, business, parenting, vision casting, understanding the market, understanding everything. I feel like it's like there's no rest. There's just no rest. You know what I mean? Like you try to find it, but the moment you think, oh, I feel so comfortable, something else comes along and you got to learn that and you got to adjust to this and so I feel like it's I feel like it's at a point where you start to groom yourself, you start to build a certain stamina to do this kind of work that only comes by just staying with it. You can't you can't teach it, bro. You just got to be there, you know what I mean? Like yeah,
I feel like I'm speaking for everyone listening or watching right now. Like, Benny, like, how do you know the tea? What receipts have you seen? Who told you? Because that whole 1 minute monologue just sit me down and shut me up. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's it. That's it right
man.
there.
It's embracing that stuff, man. I feel like is, you got to take the small steps for the long journey. You really do. Yeah, 100%.
Entrepreneurship, can we be blunt on here? This is Unfiltered Growth. It's hard. And I think once you get outside of the glamorization stage of just who's made it and living your own life and chasing the freedom, what they don't realize is the sacrifice and the cost exchange for whatever they're chasing. And it does not happen overnight. I feel like everyone puts their big toe in it, but once the full body gets in, you're going to find out real quick, can you swim at all? And if you can swim, are you an expert swimmer? And if you're an expert swimmer, can you swim in some perilous, adversity situations and circumstances to get to the actual destination? So, Benny, when you have, if we can go back in time in this moment, and you can look at your first year as an entrepreneur, like imagine me and you're talking to me as if I'm year one of Benny in entrepreneurship. What would you tell him after all the years you've been in it as of now?
Man, I would say in starting out, almost like don't be so quick to leave your job. Like take your time. like I thought I was like, yes, freedom. And then I realized real quick, you don't know what you don't know, right? So it isn't just about how great you are. It's how great do other people perceive that you are. Because if they don't know that and they don't know you, it's not just about whatever it is. It's never just about what you think you can do, right? People have to buy into you before they buy from you. People have to connect with you. They have to know, like, and trust you. There's all of these, if we're honest, there's all of these metrics. There's all these things on like your entrepreneurial dashboard that are like going off. And you gotta pull over sometimes and check that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, how am I doing on this? How am I? There's a learning curve that comes with this. And so if I could go back, I would probably seek more mentorship than just trying to be the superstar. Trying to be the guy who just believe like I realize I'm highly confident. I believe in myself, but what I needed to do, I needed to learn the things that I cannot learn on my own. I needed to be in proximity. I needed to be in the room. I needed to be, like I say, there's things that are taught and there are things that are caught, right? And there are things that I would like to say they're sought. Those are things you seek out. I would have done more seeking out. I would have done more learning. I would have humbled myself a little bit more and said, who's been there, done that? And how can I get game from that person? right? And so, because I think sometimes, but then again, I'm a knucklehead, so I like to learn the hard way too, right? So there's this mixture of like, yeah, I do all this, and there's part of it, it's because I'm an experiential learner that I won't know until I actually try it, and then I figure it out.
You know, you said so many gems, and what screams to me is that maybe it's not true, but my hunch is you was born swaggy Benny from the moment you came out of the womb. But that may not be the case. I may not be wrong. But
Maybe.
if someone was to look you up on Instagram, Coach Benny Salas, and if they were to see your brand presence, how you show up on stage, how you show up in consulting calls, coaching calls, workshops, you have a tone of confidence and conviction layered with a little bit of swagger, a little bit of history, a little bit of suave, and yet approachability.
Yeah.
How did you balance that totality to kind of incorporate within how you address, how you say things, what you wear, and all of that to present that
Yeah.
persona that you talked about earlier?
I think it's for many years I felt like I was always a people pleaser. I always felt like I wanted to make people happy and I wanted to be approved and looking for affirmation and validation. And then I said, what am I proving of me? What do I like about me? I can be confident and I don't have to be mean. I can be a bulldog when it comes to doing certain things on stage. Like I would say the Bible's a good anchor for me, right? Like you could be stronger like a lion but gentle like a dove, right? And bringing those two elements has always been a big part of my faith. Like I want to treat people how I want to be treated. I want to be approachable. Like I've actually been told I'm too nice. Like I don't know how you can be too nice, but I've been told that. They're like, Benny, you're just too nice to people. And I'm like, well, I don't want to be a jerk unless I have to be. Okay. Like if you cross me the wrong way, you're gonna see the Chicagoan come out of me. Like we throwing hands for sure. We swinging, bro.
Chicago,
And I swing first. I always swing first. Like if I even know there's threat, I'm swinging, right? But I always feel like life is tough. I always feel like you never know what somebody's going through. And in that moment, if I show up in my best self, that's what I want to be remembered for. Because I've seen those folks. I've connected. I've served under those leaders. I've connected with those business people that maybe made me feel a certain way. And I don't want that for somebody else. Those things are very impactful, especially on this entrepreneurial journey when you have to really believe in yourself more than anybody believes in you. You start to build those muscles. And so for me, I had to learn to understand. I wrote it. So my ebook is called The 3 Core Essentials to Speaking with Confidence because I really intentionally worked on it. I really had to figure out who I was in front of and not just the expectations they had of me, but also what were the expectations I had of myself? What were some of the ways that I was going to show up as a consultant, as a coach, as a speaker, as a trainer? There are different ways that we show up. So I've worked really hard that the Benny you find on this podcast is the same Benny that if you saw me in the middle of the street, you'll be like, damn, that's the same guy. Like he's himself, he's authentic, he's not fake doing one thing and then doing something else. Like that's always been important for me and my brand. I don't know, I don't do fake well. I just don't. Right. I just said it's too much work to travel with us. So for me, I've had to learn to find that almost that authenticity switch that oftentimes we're looking for and know when to turn that on and how to be present, right? That's a lot of the self-work that we do that's the stuff that you don't see on Instagram, right? All the self-work and the reading and the, the personal development and my therapist said this and my wife said this. Like there's all of those conversations that shape us, right? And I think our environment and our communities and the people who love us and who we love the most, they all shape that. And I think for me, I've always wanted to be the guy that authentically wanted to be himself. And I don't want to be like anybody else. I don't copy other people's style. I learn from them, but I'm always learning why they do what they do, not how do they do it. Right. I'm always interested in the why, the mindset, the way somebody thinks, because for me, we're always growing and evolving. The 46-year-old Benny is definitely not the 36-year-old Benny, right? Like over the past 10 years, there's been so much growth and so many things that I thought I wanted. Now I have a more clearer reason why I want those things. And so I just try, man, in whatever capacity to show up, and I'm still learning how to be me. Like I think I'm going to spend the rest of my life learning how to be me, because I think we're always changing and the world is always changing. And I want to make sure I show up that way.
You're bringing me back. I remember, for those who don't know, the reason I know Benny through a coach and a mutual friend of mine, Angus Nelson, and he connected us, and I was mesmerized, y'all. Mesmerized, like a cartoon watching X-Men. Now we got X-Men 97, bringing me back to that same feeling of just, man, if I could tap into speaking anywhere like that. And I remember that feeling, and I've been chasing that feeling, and I never forget I had a few people looking at me with the same eyes and admiration. And I found myself almost saying the same thing you had told me, of just like, I'm just an average guy, just trying to share my story and connect. And let's can we be real? Yes, some people say that, and it's like a calling card. It's just whatever, they go through the motion. But you can tell an OG, you can tell a real one from the fakes, a real one who's put in the sweat equity, the ability, and the processing to deliver a captivating session, meant to deliver. And I was thinking back to a thing that I said in my book, and it was, you want to create clear and compelling, candid conversations full of compassion and conviction to connect, confirm, and command the customers to complete the call to action, to make the volume of transaction necessary for you to do what you need to do, and for them to have the confidence to do what they need to do. And through your ebook that you echoed about the three things, one, would you be okay to share what those three things are?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
two, how did you come around developing that?
Yeah. So I think, when I started speaking, I started speaking at the age of 19. I literally, if you could go on my Instagram, my first photo that I pinned on Instagram was me as a 19-year-old speaking in front of an audience. And that stemmed from my years in performing arts. And so I felt comfortable with the stage. But man, when they put a mic in my hand, I was a whole different person. I felt that was like my calling. Like, speaking is not a career move. It's a calling, right? So the difference between this is a whole different other play. When you're called to do this, you understand the weight and the conviction. You understand the power behind why your words have to be seasoned and they have to be positioned a certain way. You understand the stories, you understand the metaphors, you understand the body language, the tonality. You bring all those into the conversation. Now, I learned this by watching other preachers and pastors, and I learned this by looking at my teachers and like, who were the ones that really got me to learn. How did they give? Because I'll be honest with you, man. I finished like one book in school. I don't even know how I got through school. Like I'm an experiential learner. I don't know how I got through college. All I know is I got the wallpaper. You know what I mean? Like, that's all I know. And I'm such an experiential learner that I have to be present in it, right? And so for me, I had to learn how to read the room. I had to learn how to connect with my intuition, right? My spirit being, my inner self, so that I could understand things that are not being said. There's a power when you understand your intuition. All of us have it. We all have that intuitive thing inside of us that almost lets us know what nobody is saying. And I think when I connected to that, that's when I started to really evolve. And so over the years, I grew that. I started to speak, and even though I wasn't always thrilled about the jobs or the career that I had, I was always thrilled that they always asked me to speak and communicate, to lead from the front, to go and, hey, Benny, you do the interview. Why? You're great. Benny gets all these results. And what I finally realized was one day, and you said the word connect the dots in the beginning. I think that's so crucial when you're trying to understand your message and your mission, is that you have to connect the dots. It's almost like the image they give us in school, where all the numbers, right, in there, all the numbers are on the sheet, but then you don't know what it looks like until you connect it. And until you connect the small dots, then you start to see the big picture. And that's what I started to see with myself. I started to connect the dots. My story of my offender telling me at 6 years old, who thought that it was okay to abuse me, that if you tell your parents, they will be mad at you. So off from the offset, I knew that I was trying to be silenced very early on as a 6-year-old. When I heard the woman on stage say, hey, if you've ever been violated at age 9, right, come up to the office and share with us. She gave me permission to break my silence. She empowered me from the stage. Man, you feel that? I feel it, bro, as I'm saying that. She empowered me from the stage because she gave me something I was looking for, which was permission to speak more. That's why I named my program Speak More. That didn't happen as a 19-year-old. That happened as a 9-year-old. That happened when I was going through my darkest days, and I went through a depressional period of my life where I didn't even know that I wanted to live anymore. And I found the mic again to share my story, and all of a sudden, speak more. Like, it's been this theme. I've been connecting the dots my whole life.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And so in the midst of doing that, I wrote this ebook called The 3 Core Essentials to Speaking with Confidence. And I focused on, like, what were the core things? There's many things, but what are the foundational things, right? And I said it has to be, what are you speaking about? Why are you speaking? And who are you speaking to? If you can have the conversation around those 3, why do I want to speak? What do I want to speak on? And who do I want to speak to? You can build the foundation of confidence. And just that simple.
The what, the why, the who.
Yeah, the why, the what, and the who. It's real simple. I hear all these other people, and I'm just like, dude, just too many hoops I got to jump through. Like, break it down. Like, make it bite-sized for me. You know what I mean? Because a lot of it is driven around performance. A lot of it is driven around people's approval. Whereas when I talk about the why, what, and who, I'm talking about your purpose. I'm talking about your mission. I'm talking about your calling.
Yeah.
And that's when you know that, you got foundation.
Well, I'm going to pull these threads, and that's going to be kind of our segmentation for the next 5 to 10 minutes. And let's start with Simon's next. Let's start with the why. I think in the mind of every entrepreneur, or even those who maybe aren't necessarily entrepreneurs, but they embrace an entrepreneurship spirit, I think people are chasing to find their why. And I
100%.
find that many times their why is stuck somewhere between defining their identity, navigating through certain traumatic syndromes or situations that may hinder their ability to discover their why, and then having the intuition to know that they declare that is their why. Because I'm sure many times you've navigated, oh, this is something I probably should do, but I don't know if I should do, because they need to have that validation within themselves. This is my calling, which becomes my mission, which becomes my impact for the many based off the calling and the choosing that I do. When we'll split this up 2 ways. One, you can talk on yourself, and then talk on how you would navigate your clients in a coaching consulting manner. When you figured out your why, how long did it take you to do it? And how long till you were affirmed, this is truly my why?
Wow. Man, that's such a powerful question. When I discovered my why, it happened in one of the most darkest places of my life, where I was frustrated about where the direction I was going. I was frustrated about my career. I was frustrated about a lot of things. And what I realized was, what was the message? Here's what I told myself. If I could write a book of where I'm at today, what would the title be? And I said, man, I feel like this title, right? At the time I delivered this talk called Shame on Me. And I talked about the shame that men deal with. And that was the open door for me to, yeah, bro. When I did that talk, that kicked everything open for me, because I realized that I had something to say. So I had to say something. And I realized that the message was deeper than just what I was sharing from a platform. It's the conversation I was having in my heart. It was bigger. It was bigger than just getting on a stage. It was bigger than getting paid. It was like, Benny, this is your life message. And so I had to really figure out what was it that drew me. What was it when I look at my clients, or I look at people that I'm coaching, or they're coming to me, I'm asking them, what do you need to let go of in order to grab a hold of your message? And most of the times it's the messages that they've received that were either a lie, a label, or a limiting belief.
Woo. No, we're going to pause for a minute, and I want everyone to sit with them 3 words. I'm going to sit with them too, like the SpongeBob meme, just sit, just pause.
Yeah.
All right, we can continue. Y'all got to hear what Benny's saying, but please continue. Woo.
Yeah. The lies, the labels, and the limiting beliefs were the areas that I was seeing people stuck at from really communicating. People, like, here's the thing. This is facts. I could prove it. Oh, I got a fear of public speaking. I tell them, you don't have a fear of public speaking. You have a fear of the public speaking. Your problem is people. Your problem is criticism. Your problem is you're afraid people are going to not accept you and they'll reject you. You don't have a problem talking. And when I asked them, a perfect example, I was at an event yesterday and this guy didn't go. They said, you got 60 seconds to share your business. Come grab the mic. You know, I went for it. I was like, I don't care. Like, I don't know anybody there, but I'm going for it. Right. And I asked the guy, I said, why didn't you grab the mic? He's like, well, I really didn't know what to say. I said, you didn't know what to say? I said, so you're not, he goes, well, you know, sometimes it's, you know, I have a fear. And I stopped him. I said, you don't have a fear. I said, you got the wrong fear. I said, don't be careful, because look at the label that you put on yourself when you say that. I have a fear of public speaking. It's a self-prophecy. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It is something that if you keep telling yourself that long enough, guess what you'll think? I have a fear of public speaking. And it's not true. Most people don't fear public speaking. They fear the public speaking. They fear what people would say or not say. And so they're driven. Think about this. They talk themselves out way before they even get to talking.
Oh, yeah.
All the time. All the time.
They'd be so confident. They get through the pipeline and go to the backstage, the curtain lift, and then just blank. And then I don't know what, I'm not worthy of being here. And
you just said it. The backstage, literally when I created this live event that we're doing called Center Stage, was to move people from hanging backstage to bringing them center stage. I said, too many people are hanging in the backstage. They're great. They're great at helping everybody else. They're great at opening the doors for everybody else and connecting everybody else. But then they're frustrated that they're not doing it.
Right.
And I said, you got to move from the backstage mindset to a center stage message.
And if we were to hold and expand on that moment just a little bit more, and you know this just as well as I do, as people of color, you know, and from generations who have gone before us have done the best that they could. And you know where I'm going with this.
Yep.
You play it safe so you don't ruffle any feathers, because safety and getting marginally 1% increase in your salary every year with no guarantees in sight is better than trying to bring something different and failing. And you just said earlier, we were talking about the other things with fear. You know, most people don't have a fear of heights. They have a fear of falling. Because if you put them in the plane, magically the fear of height ain't there. It's the fear of falling. When you
feel that turbulence, all of a sudden, you feel that turbulence in the plane, it's falling.
You know, physics, this ain't making sense. How are we flying in this metal box over here? And I think when we come to people of color in particular, and if we go even deeper, just us as men for a moment, and I will expand on that beyond the gender in a second, but since you echoed that specifically for navigating men, we have a sense of withholding things in, which can keep us also on the backstage.
Yep.
What it say? Show yourself friendly.
Yep.
And we think being vulnerable is a problem. But I'm going to do a quick second. We're going to go back to what we talked about in a minute. You had brilliantly and elegantly shared in almost such a fluid manner, sprinkling your story, your beliefs, trigger points for you and how you overcome it in like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think, where do you find the lines to express vulnerability that's controlled and intentional without coming on the tropes of just a simple basic story to try to whatever? You see where I'm going with that.
Yeah. I think, they say the shame is in the details, right? And so sometimes we have to be careful because we like to take people down to the basement and we forget to take them to the upper level, right? We love to take them down to the basement. Everybody knows the basement is creepy. Come on. If you ever had a basement, it's creepy. I don't care how much lighting you got in the basement. It's creepy. Right? And so sometimes we like to take people there and just leave them there. And we want people to feel a certain way. You're right. I've learned how to share that story many times because it was important for people to understand the origin story. You can deliver the message without having to deliver the mess. Man, telling you, most people, they love playing in the mess. Makes people feel sorry for them. I don't want anybody feeling sorry for me because my story is not meant to just inspire you. My story is meant to empower you so that you can change your story. So I have to understand the responsibility I have. Now, if I'm speaking to a group of men where I can go more in depth and I can share more of that story, and you're gonna see a different version of Benny. You're gonna see somebody who's vulnerable and transparent. Us men have a certain code that when we get in a certain room and we can share certain things, that it gives us permission. We give that permission. You have to be careful because you can't outsource that permission to everybody. You have to find ways in your story to be able to touch on something. You could start there, but you don't stay there. Yeah. And I think a big part for people is they focus on their story. I'm focused on my message. My story is a fraction of the message, right? And remember, you can interchange those stories as you go, and you can tweak those to your audience. But I think most people, the reason why it's hard for them to get on their story is they're standing in it and not on it. And you got to learn to stand on your story, not just in it.
And the reason I want to go micro, because I know Benny does a lot with men empowerment, men entrepreneurship, and men coaching specifically, for the watchers and listeners who may not have that context. But now if I were to expand out, 50,000 feet view and include everyone, being more inclusive, you can still tie it into your same nomenclature of making sure whoever you expound on these messages and things to, you're in a trusted, safe space to do so. I think of it like in Dragon Ball Z when they go in the time chamber, you need to be in a space where you can practice the muscle that is vulnerability, where you can practice, how do I move my levers? And I'm sure we're the same in navigating my own speaking journey. There's been times when people are like, Troy, how do you get so comfortable talking about 3 brain surgeries, born premature, navigating hydrocephalus, Black man in America, shot at a few times in places that was a safe space and things were happening. How do you get comfortable talking about that without sometimes finding, as you said it, we're trying to guide you to a point, not leave you in the basement and get you up to the upper room in the light. And even as we're guiding, we can almost freeze and put ourselves back in those spaces, trying to guide other people. And we may lose our own way for a second because it's like, ooh, I ain't been here in a while. Ooh, how I feel that.
Yeah.
How do you navigate and balance the reality of what has happened to you and then turn around and learn the muscles to now take that what's happened to you and make it into a 5-star dish to give it other to people to empower them to make their own?
Yeah.
Like, what does that magic look like for that?
I think the magic looks like, and it's so simple, right? In public speaking, there's what we call the 3 Ps: practice, prepare, perform. Practice, prepare, perform. You got to get comfortable sharing your story, and you got to be comfortable being the narrator of it. Because if you let somebody else tell your story, they will always tell it the wrong way. Always. It's like that exercise that you used to do when you pass down, hey, say this, pass it down. And then by the time it got to the person at the end was like, what was the word that we said? And sounds nothing. Like, well, what the original, that's the same thing. And so I feel like I've practiced sharing my message. There are times where I was really uncomfortable. There were times where, I'll be honest with you, I was too raw and people weren't ready for it. And I know that I pushed them away. And I know that maybe they were like, damn, I just came for a coaching session. This guy, like I think earlier on, I thought that would be helpful and it wasn't. I think even earlier on, when I would speak at certain venues, I would include that. And I realized I have to have boundaries. If I don't have boundaries with my own story, it will go all over the place. Boundaries are there to keep us safe. There's a harness on a roller coaster, right? When we are speaking, we are taking people on a roller coaster ride. Can you imagine if I tell people, if metaphorically, hey, get on the roller coaster ride and just enjoy the ride. No harness, no seatbelt, no nothing. Just hang on tight. We do that a lot of times with our stories. And our audience is all over the place, like, like here, there, like they're going through all these hoops, and a lot of them by the end have fallen off.
Yeah,
we got to create harnesses and boundaries for our listeners because we're taking them on a journey, and life is a roller coaster.
I think people listening or watching, you're probably, I find many times if I've seen Benny talk on stages and virtual and in person at times, you have a way of drifting off and time. You start seeing your own narrative visually in front of you as someone as skilled as he is sharing these things. And I'm doing it on my own. So we're all doing this in real time together. And I find as you share things and you talk about, that's that peak of, we go from the origin story to the point where the hero finally believes and takes the leap. I think back to the first animated Spider-Man movie with Miles Morales, and how everyone knows the moment when he jumps off, the music changes.
By the way, I love that movie.
One of the best animated movies of all time, for sure.
Yep.
And with the kicks, you got to appreciate the color, everything. But I digress. They makes the jump. You see the switch in the tone, the switch in the music, the literal switch going upside down, metaphorically showing the rise of this hero, the rise of this is who I am now. Yep. Even though they don't know just yet, you come to that point where I'm going to be that person now. It's like a switch. And I know we're going to switch right into the what in a second. This might tie into the what as we're talking. When you're making the switch and you're saying, this is me now. If you're an entrepreneur and you've made the commitment, this is my calm, this is my mission. You're a business leader, you're a creator, whatever the case might be, as you're riding this analogy wave with us. When you make that switch and you're saying, world, this is me. Here I am now. And it's like, what do I do next? Well, Benny, what do we do next?
Yeah. Wow. So when we make that switch, that's an interesting question. I never thought about it that way. I think part of it is I kind of see, to use the movie metaphor, I kind of think we have to build our conversations, our message, almost like a movie scene, right? How we transition. Remember, when you are like a volleyball team, you're setting it up so the other person can spike it. You're on a baseball team, you're working with each other, and basketball and football, right? Things have to work in harmony, right? Like I almost see it like that switch up happens when I know, one, instinctively, what am I speaking about? Why am I speaking? Why am I even here? Right? To kind of go into the what part. Why am I here? Am I here for this, or am I here for that? And then what do I need to share while I'm in this space? This is where you have to have enough reps in the game to understand how to make the switch. Like if you notice Kyrie, when he hit this amazing shot, right? He left hand, boom, right, throws it up there. He switched hands because he's been there before. He's just never done it in an NBA game. He's probably done it in practice. Come on, that's what I was talking about. You got to practice. He did it in practice, and he's probably done that over and over again. The reason why some of us don't know how to switch it up, the reason why maybe some of us aren't as articulate is not because we don't have great stories. We just haven't. We won't get out there and practice. We won't get on a podcast. We won't get in front of an audience. We won't deliver a 5-minute talk or a 50-second talk or a 1-hour talk. There's all of these ways that we can articulate how we switch this thing up, because we have to go from the why to the what. We have to be able to say, well, now what am I talking about? Not just the content, but the context, right? How do we structure that message? How do we position it to where, in that portion? Because and you know this, and we've been through this. I've been through hearing speakers, and all they did was jump from one story to the next story to the next story. And what happened is that you're like, what was the point?
Right.
Right. And so we have to be able to give them not only the topic, that's the why, we got to give them the talking points. What are we talking about? Like, is this relevant here? And here's the thing. This is where you, as a master craftsman, as a designer, as an engineer of your words, as an artist, I believe that speaking is one of the greatest art forms. So much that's all God needed to use was to create the earth, was to speak it into existence. That's it. Spoke it. Whatever faith someone believes, I believe as I read it, let there be light. How powerful are the words that we use to create something from nothing? And so this is where we get to articulate and connect with folks and really get them to see. And so when we move into the what am I talking about? This is where you can, once you got their, what I like to call, once you got their attention, this is where you get the retention. This is where you can retain them on what are you actually talking about? What's going to be the meat and potatoes? What am I going to get? Tell me what you're going to say in the beginning, and then tell it to me again. And then, matter of fact, tell it to me at the end so I can pay you to hear it again. Yeah. Like literally.
I think, to your point, what people don't realize, and again, this is unfiltered, so we're getting raw and real and breaking it down for people to understand. No chains out. We all very serious on this thing. I think to the point on public speaking and just speaking in general, what people don't realize is the most powerful way to articulation of anything is through communication of the voice. Literally before the internet, I know we can't believe or remember a time where that was the case at this point for most people at this point, but there was a time where there wasn't internet, there wasn't TV. There was communication even back in the days. It was just people would go to town and tell the stories, and it was passed down. History literally being passed down and memorized through the exchange of words. Even for those who are saying, well, what about reading? Well, when someone's reading, someone still has to say the word for someone to know that's the meaning and the association of that word to what they're reading, to transfer it that way. It's still through the transferring through the verbiage of oneself to someone else. We're not mind readers. We don't know what you think. We can guess. We can maybe measure based off of perception. We won't know the truth until you say something. And so I think many entrepreneurs, like you said, there's so many entrepreneurs who are starting off their journey in the backstage.
Yep.
And they're wondering, why is it taking me so much longer to connect, to reach, to get referrals? Because you were in the back.
Yeah.
And we don't see you. I'm not
looking backstage for folks. I'm looking at the audience. Like,
I have no idea.
Yep.
How, when someone wants to now go into the who of who they need to talk to or who matters, who cares, I'm sure you've navigated where you realize there are certain rooms that I went in, it was a wolf den. There were certain rooms I was in. It didn't matter what word came out of my mouth, they were not going to receive. There's certain rooms I went in, there was no money to be gotten. Just wasn't the right industry, the right space, or the right time. I'm guessing the answer is yes. You've experienced that. Could you talk us through that? And then 2, what do you do with that to eventually find the who you're looking for that will find value and actually pay for what you do?
Yeah, I think it's a process of omission. Like what are you or like, I think it's also, what are you omitting? Like, who are you really connecting to? And again, this is why your social media content is so crucial. This is why your digital footprint is so crucial. This is why your marketing strategies are so crucial, because it's going to give you insight and intel into who's actually vibing with you, who's connecting with you. Like, I never thought when they said your audience chooses you, I was like, no, that's not how it works. I get to choose. And then I realized that my audience, it kind of is true. I think there's some truth to that. Your audience will connect with you. For example, this guy was so funny. I've never had anybody say this to me. Yesterday, I went to a networking event, and it was a very small event. And the guy, when I went up there and I grabbed the mic, I shared what I do for 60 seconds. And, afterwards, he said to me, he goes, "What are you doing at this small event?" I said, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Dude, I don't even know you, but I could tell that you probably speak in other places." I said, "Listen, I could speak to 100 of the wrong people, or I could speak to 20 of the right people. I'm still in the right room." He's like, "Ah." I said, "The fact that you're talking to me about coming to center stage lets me know I'm in the right room." See, that's the thing. We're always chasing the light. We're always chasing, the recognition, or maybe we're chasing what we think looks advantageous, or grandiose, or whatever. And sometimes it's not always that. One of my biggest clients, who we had him on for about a year or so, and we kind of phased out from working with them for the meanwhile, happened at a mastermind that I spoke at. And, I paid money to be a vendor and a sponsor, and barely anybody came to my table, but one guy did. We've done multiple six figures with that one client, literally, because he came to the table. So you don't know the power of who's in the room. But if you don't get in the room and no one hears you, sees you, connects with you, guess what? You're missing out on your opportunities. And so I think part of it too is knowing my who. My who was there. My who was there last night when I went to that thing. And I'm gonna tell you why I went, because the organizer of that event is the one for TEDx Boca. I want to get on that TEDx stage, and I want that one specifically. But man, I cannot get her attention for nothing. So you know what I did? I pulled up, gangster style. I pulled up. I was like, "Hey," and she saw me. She's like, "Benny." I said, "Yeah, I did. I was a G in there, right?" But here's the thing. Some people aren't willing to do that because they think they're the rock star, the superstar, and that there's no humility in them. We're building businesses, okay? And sometimes it's just about good business practice. And if people don't know you, right? Like you could be a rock star in your own mind, but I'm not trying to be local. I'm trying to be national. I'm trying to go global. I'm trying to reach folks that they don't look like me, sound like me, they don't think like me. I'm trying to reach those people. So for me, I understood that helps me understand who my who is, right? My who isn't just somebody who just wants to speak. You got to, like, a lot of people want to speak. A lot of people aren't doing it. You have to have something at stake. You have to be mission driven. There has to be a deep why to your what, right? Because then that helps me understand who your who. It helps me understand who are you really trying to reach. Are you trying to reach, women who are business professionals and make a certain thing? And I know we kind of get into this, like, give me your ideal avatar. Multiple six figures. Yeah, we all want to work with people with multiple six figures. Duh. Like, well, no, that's a no-brainer. Only 7-figure earners. Yeah, of course we do. You know what I mean? That's a no-brainer. But I think it has to go a little bit deeper than that. It's got to know what problem do you solve when we talk about that, right? Like, what problem are you solving, and who are you solving it for, and who have you solved it for in the past, right? Ask your people around you. What are you best known for? Those will be the people that can give you some insight into your who very quickly.
You've heard it here first. If you want to learn more, thatcoachingguy.com. That coaching guy, that's Benny. He's him. Go check that out. And for those who don't know, he's the founder and CEO of That Coaching Guy Incorporated, as also the co-founder of the Build and Grow Company. And as you can tell through this whole episode, he's brought over 25 years of professional speaking, coaching, training, and development experience and expertise to the table, to this airways for you. He is an ICF certified international executive coach. So we don't leave out no scrubs on this show. We're going to make sure we bring the right people that meet you at the right time to hear what you have to say.
About coaching, Man, if we could talk about coaching at some point again, man, I'll tell you, I got a whole play on coaching, man, because some bad coaching going on around here in these streets.
We were just talking with another colleague of ours on the show, and we're just saying not all coaches are created equal. There's been times where people don't even want to say they're a coach because of the stigma and the bad boo-boo that's been around a lot of these coaches around here.
Yeah.
It's challenging. And I think the same thing gets to be said about maybe marketers. The same thing can be said about maybe certain agents. It can go on about entrepreneurs, can be a lot of things, but that doesn't define you. It's hard to maintain a lie. It's easy to maintain the truth. And if you are authentic in yourself, and just how you said, renege the lies, the labels, and the limiting beliefs.
Yeah, 100%.
Practice, prepare, and perform. Know your why, your what, and who. Lead into your intuition. Make sure you have your conviction and go make that good food in this kitchen. Like, come on now. We just trying to make this work and maybe get a few bars and laughs on the way. Yeah. We appreciate you, Benny, taking the time. I think, it's one thing, and you've done it so elegantly. And again, I'm not saying this to say this to pad. I say this because many times as entrepreneurs and people of color, we don't get our flowers because we're so deep into doing the work. We're deep in doing the next thing.
We don't get our flowers because we're too busy. We're too busy getting them for everybody else.
Come on now. So I want to give you your flowers, brother. I want to give you your flowers for, the impact we're already having this conversation now. Those who will be consuming visually or literally as they're doing their thing, building their business. I hope certain things that you said and echoed just sit in people's brains and just navigate some things. And to bring this on home, I'm going to ask you two more questions. First question is, what's the one question you always want people to ask you that they never do? And what would be your answer to that question?
I think the one question I want people to ask me that they never do is, I think it's always almost like what's been the biggest thing you're proud of, right? I think sometimes because we work hard to articulate, be on point, be sharp, it has to match, right? Our content has to match what we're asking people to pay us. They almost think like everything is good, right? And I hurt just like everybody else. I cry like everybody else. I get frustrated like everybody else. There are times where I believe in myself, and there are times where I'm just like, what the hell am I doing? There's these moments. And so it's always good to be brought back to a place of resonance and humility, because those feelings never leave us. They stay with us. And so I don't get asked that much because I think people just think I'm naturally like crushed in and winning all the time. And there are seasons when I'm not winning. There are seasons where I feel like I'm losing, or I feel like I'm not where I want to be. And so, yeah, maybe that. I don't know. Never been asked that question. Great question.
I'm glad I was able to ask it. And I think your answer was perfect and real. Like, I feel like that. I think we talk about these things. I tell this up all the time. I've helped generate over $250 million. And I think with me and Christina both in our season 3, we've generated over like $400 million collectively, or more than that. That don't mean I got it in my pocket. That don't mean I got it. That don't mean I'm living in a mansion just because I've helped other people get what they need to get. That don't mean I got a cut or commission that's in my bank account going every month. Right. So I think sometimes we, again, because we have the courage to show up and be on these mics and get on the stage and do these things. I remember I went on stage one time. I didn't have a penny to my name. I spent my last to get on the stage because I knew I needed exposure and hope that maybe someone in there will be my next client to give me enough money to get back home. How's that for faith? That's a whole nother conversation. We're not going to go there.
Right.
But we got to understand, like, this is real. And the reality is this is hard stuff. If it was easy, everybody would be able to do it. And the vision you have would manifest just like that. And the money would be there. It is not easy. And like you said, everything, even on how our business season 3 is in seasons. Let's not be too bitter about the bad seasons, and let's not get too complacent in the good seasons.
Yeah.
And let's stay consistent. And the last question I want to ask you, and again, this is unfiltered growth. I'm gonna give you the imaginary unfiltered mic. And I want you to think through something that you are seeing or observing that you want to change, cease, desist, encourage, whatever you feel in your heart to say unfiltered in this moment. The mic is yours. Proceed.
Wow. The thing I want to see, so I want to see maybe the less fortunate believe in themselves. I want to see people who, I've seen a lot of and I'll speak from the Latino side. I've seen a lot of my people just be comfortable being in the room when actually they need a seat at the table. I want to see that. I'm tired of being the waiter. I'm tired of being the janitor. I want to be the boss at the chair. I want to be the one at the head of the table. And I want to see people have that same mindset for themselves, to understand that nobody's going to give you, that you don't need affirmation when God already gave you confirmation. And I think so often we're looking for that. We're looking for people, places, and things to tell us what we already know. And so if I could change one thing, is to give people back their own permission to be who God's called them to be, to do what exactly it's in their heart, and to do it without fear or trepidation or fear or doubt or worry. Like, I would want to see that, because I feel like the world's a better place when you like we talk about be your authentic self. A lot of us don't know what the crap that looks like. Okay. Because we're being everything that we think everybody else wants us to be. But what would that look like? Right. That's what I want to see. That's what I strive for. And at times it's hard, because I could go with the crowd. I could follow the status quo. I could adjust and pivot to those things, but I just wouldn't be me if I did. And so I would want to see the world and people do that unapologetically, unashamed, and unafraid. That would be my hope.
And that's our hope too. And if you're someone who heard this whole thing and you're like, I need some help, because we all need help sometimes. Coach Benny is around the corner. You just got to go to his site, thatcoachingguy.com or BennySalas.com. He is Coach Benny Salas on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Threads. Look him up on YouTube. Search him all over the internet. You will find additional things to bring you that value. We will drop the link as well, so you download his ebook for the 3 things to help you with your speaking. Do not forget, no one can tell your story better than you, but you got to get better at telling your own story. And with that, you all, we appreciate you. We thank you. If you aren't subscribing, if you aren't leaving reviews, do that for Unfiltered Growth. And please follow my brother, Benny, on what he's doing. He has an event coming up soon, I believe June 7th, June 8th. Could you really quick talk about that? I meant to talk about that earlier, if you don't mind, really quick.
Yeah, Center Stage is an event that we're putting on to bring people together, business owners, thought leaders, and business professionals, to own their stage, their story, and their spotlight. We're looking at bringing out a world-renowned speaker as a headline. We're bringing people in the area of marketing, mission, message, mindset, monetization. It's guest panel speakers, and I will be doing a 4-part training series over the 2-day window. And then in day 2, there will be people who said, Benny, I want to take the next step. And guess what? They're going to take center stage. They're going to deliver their talk in front of us. We're going to record it, and we're going to give them that content, because a lot of people, a lot of speakers say they speak, but you can't find them speaking anywhere, which to me is weird. Don't tell me you speaking. I can't find you speaking. You ain't talking. You ain't talking to me. Like, I don't know who you're talking to, but you ain't talking to me. So we're trying to help people solve that problem. And here's the thing. I think people, man, I feel like when people own their center stage, that spotlight, I think their life will never be the same again. There's something powerful that happens when you realize the power in your message.
And with that, y'all, we unfiltered, all truth, we out. And that wraps up another episode of Unfiltered Growth. Make sure you subscribe, rate,
with 5 stars,
and leave us a review.
Remember, growth doesn't happen in isolation. Join our community of bold thinkers and doers on social media and stay connected.
Don't forget to go to season3media.com unfiltered.com/podcast for strategy or event inquiries, resources, or to just chill with us.
Until next time, keep pushing boundaries, embracing diversity, and never stop growing. This is Christina and Troy signing off. And remember,
No filters.
just growth.